In the case of Hae Min Lee's murder, the numerous amount of inconsistencies has made the identity of her murder a mystery to this day. Many inconsistencies in the case stemmed from the lies told from Jay and possibly Adnan.
I believe Jay committed the crime because he has inconsistencies to the police many different times. He has prior knowledge of the murder before Hae actually died, and he admits to burying the body, but it could be more than that. In the podcast of Serial, Jay suddenly changes his story to have Adnan being at Best Buy when he asked him to pick him up. This perfectly matches with Jen's story, which Jay influenced. The place where you saw a strangled dead body is not something to slip out and be forgotten. Episode 4. Jay is showing more inconsistencies here by changing a major part of the story again to avoid trouble and be on the safe side of the cops. Jen's story is highly influenced by Jay, so he makes both stories match. This leads to Jay being off the suspect list and a witness for the case.
I understand what you're saying about Jay's inconsistency in the story, that he's trying to protect himself from the cops when he changes where he picked Adnan up. But Jay has such a strong alibi, and Adnan also has a lot of inconsistencies. For example, when he told the cops originally the day of when Hae went missing that he asked for a ride, but then later, a couple weeks later, he tells the cop that he never asked for a ride.
I agree. Adnan and Jay, I think, have a lot of evidence against both of them for why they could have made this murder. In my opinion, I personally think it was a collaborative effort between the two of them because of all the evidence that leads to that point. Adnan and Jay undeniably had a lot of lying in this case. Jay more so than Adnan, but at the same time, you never know.
I could see why you guys would think it would be Adnan, because in the podcast, Jay does say, quote, "Like I said, he knows I sold drugs. He could get me locked up for that. I'm sure if I rattled him out for killing Hae, then he wouldn't hesitate to turn me for selling drugs," unquote. Episode 4. He does have a good point here by saying that he would be in much trouble if he told the cops Adnan was a killer, because Adnan wouldn't even hesitate to say that Jay was selling illegal drugs. But Jay does have inconsistencies of a major part of the story, not just little chunks of the story that's a filler part maybe, but he changes a big part of the story about where Adnan got picked up by, resulting in my number one choice of the killer still being in Jay.
While Jay's story does have big inconsistencies, the call log, which cannot be argued upon, suggests that Adnan did have his phone during the day, when Adnan's story says that his phone was with Jay the entire time. In episode 6, Sarah says Adnan's story is that he's had his cell phone and him were separated the entire day, from lunchtime all the way until after track practice, or around 5 something. But the Nisha call happens at 3:32, right in the middle of the day. This basically means that from Adnan's story, there's no way that the Nisha call should have happened, because Jay does not know Nisha. So the only possible explanation to this is that it would be a butt dial, which is incredibly unlikely, or that Adnan called Nisha and his whole story is a lie.
The Nisha call was a huge piece of evidence that links Adnan to the murder, but at the same time, Jay's story does not align with the Nisha call. Undoubtedly, the Nisha call was made from Adnan's cell phone, which Jay claims was with him along with Adnan's car. So if Jay does not know Nisha, then there would be no reason why he is making a call to her. Only thing that would possibly make sense is if she was making the call to Adnan's phone, but that was just not the case. So Jay's story of how he had Nisha's phone, Adnan's phone, does not line up with the call itself. So I could see how that would be evidence towards both of the two individuals. That's why I think both of them could have possibly did it.
Yeah, butt dials are very common. They're not something that occurs rarely with phones. Accidents just can't happen. Like, you can't control that. It can occur. Like, in this situation, it's a coincidence. So I don't think this piece of evidence of the Nisha call should be used as a piece of evidence to support that Adnan was a killer, because they're just common and accidents can occur.
While the Nisha call could have conceivably been a butt dial in Adnan's favor, can't really explain how Adnan picked up a call that was pinged in Lincoln Park. In episode 6, Sarah Koenig states, quote, "You know how last episode we talked about those 2 incoming Lincoln Park calls on the call log at 7:09 and 7:16 when Jay says that they were burying hay, the ones that we really think were in Lincoln Park? Well, Jen has a cameo in that scene. Jen says she was one of the incoming calls. She says she called the cell phone at that time looking for Jay, but Adnan picked up instead."
Regarding Lincoln Park, I think a piece of evidence that needs to be stated more than it has been is the fact that Jay has already admitted to burying the body that Adnan has murdered. Jay undeniably has been there and on the scene, yet refuses to talk about what happened that day when he was at Lincoln Park. When authorities would press Jay for more information about the body or in general being at Lincoln Park, he would refuse to talk about the topic and would even change the subject at times. In episode 8 of Serial, quote, "Experts say Jay's change of story is a huge question," unquote. I feel that Jay's inconsistencies with what he says and his lies that he covers up could possibly be a reason why he murdered Hay.
I totally agree with you. With Jay already keeping up with his lies to the authority, leading to more inconsistencies, it's showing that he is trying. It sounds like he's hiding something from the authority, and they're not really looking into it as much, but it gives the audience a feeling that he's hiding something. Jay claims that he picked up Adnan. She says, quote, "You go in and you're more aware of your surroundings than just walking into the store, but you're very aware of who's entering and who was there. There's no payphone," unquote, episode 9. Jay claims that Adnan used a payphone at the Best Buy to tell him to pick him up, but there was no cameras there, so we can't use camera evidence. But this woman named Laura, she used to shoplift, and as a shoplifter, you would be more aware of your surroundings and you would observe much more, proving that Jay has made up more lies that Adnan used a payphone to call him to pick him up.
In conclusion, unless significant evidence is brought up proving someone's innocence or guilt, no conclusion can be certain for the death of Hae Min Lee.